Hi, my name is Steve Sutherland. I'm the host of Information Morning on CBC Radio in Cape Breton. And over many years, I've interviewed many scientists about many different science stories. And that's the perspective that I'm bringing to the conversation today. When considering effective communication of your science story, I would encourage you to think about 5 things ahead of time. What's the question that you set out to answer with your project? What did you do to examine that question? What were the key findings? What's significant about those findings? And most importantly, why should anybody care? And if you put some consideration into those questions ahead of time, I think you'll be quantum leaps ahead in effectively communicating your science story. I also think you should consider what is the coolest part of your story? What is the neatest part of what you did? And use that as a way to bring people into your story. Maybe for you it was a part of the process. Did you helicopter into the Canadian Shield with bear spray in your pocket? Did you trek into the Ecuadorian jungle to interview female guerrilla fighters, both of which are things that people I've interviewed at CBU have done? Or maybe it's not the process that's interesting in your case. Maybe that's a bunch of boring lab stuff. Maybe the outcome is the important part. Like, for instance, you discovered a compound in birch bark that can be used to make soap that can be monetized by Indigenous communities. That's pretty cool. And it doesn't have to be the main thrust. It's the thing that you would tell somebody at a party or in a lineup at Sobeys that brings someone into your story, and then you can talk about the rest of your project. Now, the flip side of that is I would encourage you not to get lost in the details. Yes, you're going to have to simplify some things. Yes, you may have to lose a little bit of context. And yes, you may have to take what is a very specialized area of work and make it understandable to a layperson. But if Nobel Prize-winning astrophysicist Art McDonald can explain neutrinos using a Timbit on this hour's 22 minutes, I think you can find a way to do it with your science story. And one more piece of advice. I would encourage you to say yes. If somebody calls you up for an interview, say yes. If your institution puts your name in a press release and somebody looks for an interview, say yes. Not only will you be communicating science, which is part of the job, you'll also be highlighting your work and maybe even more importantly, highlighting the work of your institution, which could pay off down the line in more grant money or the accolades of the president. And I know that a lot of scientists are not interested in doing interviews, or they say, this is not what I get into it for, or they're nervous about it, or understandably so, nervous about losing control of the story. All I can tell you about doing interviews is the more you do them, the easier they get. So again, if you're thinking about effectively communicating your science story, a couple of things to keep in mind. Why should anybody care? What is the coolest thing about what you did? Don't get lost in the details. And finally, if someone like me calls you up looking for an interview, I would enthusiastically and supportively encourage you to say yes.